It's Wednesday again, and I'm still sitting in the garage. As usual, waiting for this thing to come through. 20 seconds in, I hope it works. And frankly, I hope that the chat works today, because last time, as it turned out, the chat didn't work. Last Wednesday, after I finished the live stream, I seen a notification on YouTube, in my YouTube studio, and it said that users were complaining about chats not working, blah, blah, blah. So I figured that I wasn't the only one. It turns out a week ago, something was horribly wrong with YouTube, and the live chat didn't work. So I hope everything is working fine this time. And if you hop in, let me know if the chat is working. Say something so that I know. The weather does not permit me yet to get out and stream from outside, even though I wanted to, and I was hoping that it would get warm enough, and it's sort of warm, but it's there was a thunder rumbling, and I had a warning about a thunderstorm coming. So I didn't risk getting out, let alone burning a fire. I think it's a little too early for a fire. I would wait for a warmer day. I hope to see Mr. N today. I hope to see Patrick. But we'll see how it pans out. And again, I was hoping to get on here a little earlier, but it didn't pan out because again, I went to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was not in time to get all of my stuff done. So I struggled to wake up, and it just, gosh, it just keeps going and going and going. And recently I have come across an interesting study about a certain, someone is watching, hello. Recently I came across an interesting study about a certain type of people. Hello. Camilla Soria says hello, and Chase YT said hi. Hi to everybody. Hi guys, how are you doing? Good morning, Catherine, says Olivia. Olivia, I haven't seen you in such a long while. I'm very glad you came. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. And thank everybody for joining. How are y'all guys doing? I was just saying in the beginning that last week there was a problem. Apparently YouTube had a problem and the live chat didn't work. Last week I was sitting here and having my Wednesday stream, and the chat was silent, and I couldn't figure out what was going on until after the chat, when I actually received a notification from YouTube, and they apparently said that a lot of people had a problem. But today, it seems like it works. Camilla Soria says, hello, please. Hello, please to you. We're looking at a house in Liechtenstein. Oh, wow. Olivia, that's wicked cool. So, what are you thinking? What do you think? How expensive is it? I mean, I'm not very knowledgeable on properties in Liechtenstein, but as far as I know, isn't it a really difficult country to get into? I know that Greece is relatively simple to get into for American citizens and others, but Liechtenstein is kind of like Switzerland, is very difficult to get into. Or am I wrong? This, what do you mean, Olivia? A house in Liechtenstein sounds marvelous, frankly. Um, Coffee, Coffee Jin Hunktari says hi. Hi to you. How are you doing? Oh, Leachfield. Leachfield. I thought it was Liechtenstein. God, I thought you were going to move to Europe into a country that is one of the most difficult to actually move into. I was like, wow, the nerve. I mean, seriously. Liechtenstein is a very small country. It's very difficult to get in there. Janet Chavez says, "You're so pretty. Thank you." Girl, I wish. Yeah, Liechtenstein is difficult. But I actually don't know where is Litchfield. Where is Litchfield? Brittany Casey says this. What does it mean? Am I missing something? This. At least the live chat is working today, and I really like it. At least I can see that, people are saying things, and that's wonderful. I was saying before everybody hopped in, I was saying about a study that I recently came across, and it was about a type of psyche that, gosh, I don't remember what the type is called, but for the first time, probably in forever, I recognized myself in it. And I have my closest friend, my oldest friend actually, she's that same way too. It seems that we share a lot of traits. And the characteristic feature of this psyche is that we're all over the place basically, and we can't stick to one thing. In other words, for the most part, modern society, not just modern society, like this has been going on for a while, promotes deep drilling. What I mean by that is that you're kind of supposed to pick a profession. You're supposed to pick a direction in life, and you're supposed to stick to some sort of specialty, and just do that, and specialize specifically in that skill. But there's a type of psyche, and I guess that's me and other people, who are not able to stick to one thing. And we need to go, into that discipline and into this discipline and that other one. And it's not because we cannot focus on one thing. It's because we are drawn to other things as well, to other disciplines, to other activities. And quite often we can't even explain why, But the interesting part is that it turns out that there is a lot of overlap with ADHD. I was thinking for the past 2 or 3 years, I was trying to pinpoint what, my own patterns. And I was suspecting, but I wasn't sure. I was thinking, God damn it. Well, it doesn't look like I do have ADHD. It doesn't look like I have autism or something like this, but there are traits. I was running a multitude of tests, and it doesn't seem that I'm either autistic or ADHD. But how is it so then that I have these overlapping patterns, And so this video came along, and then I read a study about that there is this type of psyche which is all over the place. But this is not because, like in ADHD, you can't focus on one thing and you keep going and you switch over to the other thing, so you can't hold attention. But in this case, you just have to go into other areas. And the thing is that you're looking for patterns across disciplines, across different occupations, across different activities, and you're excited about that next thing, and that's why you go there. And that's me. So I figure, I don't know, I found it just kind of interesting that there was this thing out there and I didn't know about it. But in the very beginning of the stream, in the very, very beginning, I said that once again, I wasn't able to finish everything. And I went to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning and woke up again barely woke up at 1:30. And damn it. I'll try to do something about this. I want to wake up earlier now that it's getting warmer. But I really don't have a solid solution how to go about it, because I'm not living alone. I'm married. But the problem is that I can really focus on something and get serious about whatever I'm working on when I stay completely alone. And so, my nervous system is not able to work, to focus, to do something. And I mean, really do something. And, writing and painting and creating music, it's all heavy lifting. It's not easy stuff, It's very difficult to focus on this when there are any distractions going on, So I end up doing this in the middle of the night when I'm completely alone and when everything is quiet. And that's when I can actually focus on working on things, But that's kind of a problem. It's about 40 miles from Elizabethtown. Olivia says, hyper-specialization, yes. Serves industrial society, yes, precisely. It serves industrial society, but it is not natural, actually. And so it's not that, it's not that I'm a jack of whatever the expression is, a jack of many trades and not good at anything. It's just that I really can't sit in one thing and just do that one thing and not do anything else. It doesn't work with me, and it never worked. And on some visceral level, somewhere deep down, I feel that I completely and utterly refuse the idea of trying to cram myself into this one single specialized mindset. I couldn't put a finger on this. I didn't have an explanation for this for basically all of my life. In the pre-internet era, I just didn't know that this exists. That this existed. I didn't know that there was such a thing. But over the years, I was wondering, why do I feel this internal rebellion against a lot of things, against structures, systems, the way society is. And it was hard for me to kind of grasp, why is this? And I was latching on to different explanations. It's because society is unjust, or that's because that and that authority is corrupt, for example, right? Or because, that and that and that and that. Until I started to see the bigger picture. And on one level, I started to realize that, yes, a consumerist society is an insanely oppressive society in many ways. But also, there is this other overlapping layer, which makes it even worse for me personally, because apparently I just can't fit in, such a society because of the way I'm wired, and that makes it so much more difficult, And I'm saying this, I'm sharing this because I know that there are other people like this out there, and what I say might be helpful to someone. I came across this video, I came across this study. It's pretty interesting stuff, No smoke. It's true, you're multi-talented. Thank you, Olivia. But also, not everybody is as good at even one thing as you are at so many. Thank you, Olivia. But that's another thing. I don't know if it's talent. And that's kind of I don't know how to put this. When people say, and I avoid this when I say that someone is good at something, I don't tell them that they're talented. How how do I say this? How do I explain this? It's somewhat of a confusing thing to me. I don't know if this is just talent or is it mostly just doing things over and over again and over and over again. Is it obsession? I know that if you keep showing up and you keep doing the same thing, well, not the same thing exactly, but you keep at trying over and over again, you inevitably become better. That's just how things are. I don't know if talent is even the determining factor altogether. I think maybe it matters when we're kids, when those abilities, they manifest themselves when we're playful and when we're open to the world, before we get conditioned by the society, before we start to shut down and our natural abilities wither away and then reside somewhere in the dark substrates of ourselves. But then later in life, when we grow up, when we become grown-ups, and when we become adults, I think maybe it's not that much about talent. It's just about, do you show up and do you do the things? Are you passionate about something enough? Do you believe in yourself enough to keep going and keep doing a certain thing? You know what I mean? I really think that all children, if not most children are very talented at a lot of things. It appears to me. I work with kids. I used to be a teacher, and I actually taught at school back in the day. With third graders, I know the children are very perceptive. I know that they carry a lot. But then something happens, and as we socialize, it starts to shut off. And then as adults, some of us retain that childish sort of perception and that ambiguity for longer, and others just shut off, and then they disconnect with themselves, and then there is this whole notion of that you have to reclaim the child within yourself, and this kind of thing, which works, of course. But is it talent, or is it just that some of us don't disconnect with our inner child and we just keep going? Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Then there are other factors like brain plasticity, for example, which is kind of important. And some people retain that plasticity because they keep exposing themselves to new things, and they're curious. And curiosity is a wonderful thing to have. Those people who are not curious, they are more likely to get stuck in the same mold, in the same way of thinking, and the more they are stuck in that same way of thinking, the more you literally just reinforce the same patterns in your brain, kind of like a snowy mountain. And if you keep going down skiing off of the same side of the mountain, you got to leave grooves. So that's kind of how the brain is. And if you don't try something different, those grooves will become deeper and deeper, and it will be a lot more difficult to clean the slate and to remold your brain into a different pathway. I do think there is talent and aptitude, but yes, also perseverance. Yes, absolutely, all of that plays a part. Yeah. I'm thinking about these things a great deal because, I talked about this before. I keep seeing these reels on, Instagram and all over the place where, advice for beginner artists. And it's something along the lines of like, you either have to discipline yourself, or you have to, make it easy for yourself to walk up to the easel. When I say something like this, to me, it's pretty crazy, because I know that it's not really discipline that gets you through. The hidden super weapon is obsession. But the problem with this is that obsession doesn't come out of nowhere. It doesn't show up out of nowhere. Maybe it has to do with that you're not really able to express those particular things in any other way. You know, maybe that's the secret. And when you cannot express things in a certain way, you can't talk about this, you can't say it out loud, or you can't put it into words, and then your only resort is something like painting. Or maybe it's music, which is a wonderful medium because it doesn't even require words, and it speaks on a completely different level. So I suspect that maybe there is something about the nervous system, about the type of nervous system that creative people of different, painters, artists, writers, poets, musicians, etc., have. Maybe that is more of a defining factor, because those who are really, really good at these things, I think, maybe the secret is that they're not really able to express themselves otherwise. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Oh, that plays a part. Girl is speaking my language. I'm thinking out loud. I really don't believe in just discipline. It sounds like a good thing. Discipline yourself, get stronger. But I think that I really believe in a different thing. I believe that if you go against your nature and if you try to impose on yourself something that your body really doesn't need, your body, your psyche, that is kind of inherently unnatural for you, you're going to be breaking yourself for no good reason. I mean, you're not going to make yourself stronger or better or more efficient. I think it's just going to damage yourself. The wisest thing is to augment something that you already have, to find the flow within and to go with it and to amplify it, and then it feels natural. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Gosh, it feels so good that the chat is working today. Pardon me, I was going on for a long while. 9 people are watching. Thank you guys for showing up. But in the end of the day, I think a lot of these things, it is about the nervous system. It is about the psyche and about the nervous system. You can't discipline yourself, or you can't intellectualize through, like, to make yourself do something that you don't really feel, that you don't really have a feeling for. You have to feel it. But there has to be an underlying need for it. And expression is, one of the basic core needs of, human beings. We need to express ourselves. But I don't know. It's a topic that I'm thinking about all the time, and I don't have a solid answer, but I'm thinking about this. Like, why do we actually do art? Do we do it because there is something that we strive to express, but we can't? Or words just don't say all of it, and we need something else to express that? Or is it something different? Is it not, maybe it's not even about ourselves, maybe it's, which is another way of thinking about this, and I also believe in this. I think, I don't see the creative process as all about myself. It feels like downloading something from somewhere. You know what I mean? It's just that I have to capture this almost like out of thin air. Ideas come from somewhere, inspiration comes from somewhere, and then I absorb something and then I let it out of myself. So it's not just me, it's not just my nervous system, you know what I mean? So it's kind of complex and it's multi-layered. I don't know. What do you think about this, Olivia? I'm a dilettante and don't mind saying so. There's nothing wrong with that, actually. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being a dilettante. Actually, if anything, I think in a lot of cases it provides more freedom because I would argue, even though it might sound very weird, but I would argue that being a professional at something is dangerous. What I mean by that is that oftentimes when you settle in a profession and you start doing something because that's your bread and butter, it becomes cumbersome and it starts to weigh on you and it imposes limitations. It happens all the time. For example, I was a vocal coach, a music theory coach for about 10 years in the past, and I found it extremely limiting. And what I discovered after 10 years is at some point I was just not able to do it anymore. Yes, I also lost my voice in 2013. I talked about this, and then I had to recover for about 7 years. That was part of why I stopped teaching. But the other part of the equation was that I realized that I just can't do it. That maybe at best I can teach a couple of people, but not for money. I could be able to teach, 1, 2, 3 people, but not for money. But because I would really give them the knowledge that I possess. It sounds kind of weird because you're supposed to earn money with what you can do, right? In the society that we live in. But after 10 years of teaching, I discovered that I'm extremely tired and I'm extremely drained of the very idea that I have to, do these classes and people come to me and they pay for my time. But there's this weird feeling that it doesn't matter how much money you get out of this, it feels wrong. You know what I mean? It feels wrong because, first of all, no amount of money can cover what you actually give, because you end up giving, you can't count this. It's incalculable, How many times it wasn't just about the vocal technique, but inevitably, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not a teacher by nature. Maybe that's the thing. I ended up, instead of dealing with just the technicalities of vocals, I had to dig deeper every freaking time. And inevitably, I was, going into this territory of psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, because you deal with people, their voices are something that are inseparable from them. It's part of who they are. And so when someone has a vocal problem and they can't breathe properly or they don't feel their body, we're not even talking about vocal technique. Forget about that for a while. We're going to be talking about, why can't you breathe? Why don't you feel your muscles? Maybe you're dissociated. And there is a lot of uncomfortable territory because people come to you as a vocal coach, but then when you actually tell them the truth, and you show them what I can do, I can do this and that, but this is how I came to this. This is the feel, that I have there. But they don't feel it because they're disconnected. So now all of a sudden you're taking off the vocal coach hat and you're putting on the psychotherapist, hat, even though, and what money is going to cover this? And then it's just very draining. But then also the very idea that I have to take money, that I have to be sitting there. And I went through some very difficult times, in that decade that I was a vocal coach. I had to go through some very difficult times. So I was kind of forced to think about, how much money am I gonna make? Am I gonna, have food on my table by the end of the week, or am I going to pay the rent and I'm going to be left with nothing? So that's a very pressing thing, when you're trying to, sustain yourself. And I sustained myself for most of my life. It was tough. But to be in this kind of cooker pressure, in this pressure cooker is extremely difficult. And after a decade of doing that, I was not able, I lost my voice, I stopped teaching, and then when I recovered my voice, I figured that I just don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. If I was to teach someone, I would teach maybe 1, 2, 3 people tops, but I would really teach them, and I would not take any money for it. But those would have to be, special people who I would feel they really hear what I'm saying. They really need what I'm saying. They're really looking for this knowledge, So it's not just me being capricious and, hyper selective, like, I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to tell you this or whatever. No, it's about that. It's about value and about knowing that you're giving something to somebody and that other person is really going to put it to work. They're not just going to, sit on this or just, dismiss it or just, well, I don't know if I want to do this even. I don't know if I, because that would be a waste of time. You know what I mean? Let me see. Keeps my psyche childlike and exploratory. I do need more discipline though. A little bit of discipline I think is good. A little bit of discipline, but discipline is a difficult thing. And I mean, I think discipline is glorified in a capitalist society because you're supposed to be, there's this myth about it. You're supposed to be productive, a productive member of a capitalist society and capitalist/consumerist society. And that's a very poor metric to apply to a human being because why are you supposed to be productive all the time? You're not a machine. You're a human being. You know what I mean? And so when discipline is connected to productivity, it is a dangerous thing to do. To a certain extent, it's useful. But I believe, especially looking at all this, productivity coaches and, all these master classes on this and that and blah, blah, how to become successful. And, yeah, right. Discipline this, discipline that, blah, 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 blah. There's an obsession with this. I think obsession with discipline is detrimental. A little bit of discipline where you really need this, where you need to pull through, is very helpful and very useful. But I'm just, I just had to say this. Hey, much love from South Africa to Dylan. Dylan, much love to you. Thanks for showing up. DK said, I'll go on. Okay. Just like that. 3 people are watching. Nice. Nice. Some 8398. Yeah, I say I don't have moderators today on my channel. But I've banned certain words, and these words have not surfaced yet. So that's something works. Yeah, I got a vapor. I don't advertise this. I think it's a bad habit. I used to be a smoker. I used to be a tobacco smoker most of my life. Haven't seen a big vape like that in years, really? No, I'm not advertising this, guys. I'm not advertising this. It's a bad habit. If you're not vaping and you're not smoking, don't start this. I was silly enough to start smoking cigs when I was 12 years old. On the other hand, I think my fate was kind of sealed because my father was a heavy smoker. And so as a 12-year-old, I really didn't know any better. And I was a smoker up until 2017. In 2017, I quit smoking cigarettes, and the only way that I could do that was I switched over to vaping. And ever since then, I did not quit vaping. And that's the only bad habit that I have. Looks like a perfume bottle. Yeah, it looks like a perfume bottle. Sure. People get the small ones now, like the Geek bars, but you got the whole kit with the coils and stuff. Yeah, I don't like the small ones. My very first vape was like a small little thing, but then eventually I just got to these things because they're sort of more efficient, more economical, I guess. It's kind of easier to handle, I guess. It's just cheaper in the long run. You know what I mean? No, I can't make circles and shapes from the smoke. No. And I never practiced it. I tried to do some of those tricks when I was a tobacco smoker. When I was a teenager, I was trying to do stuff like that, but I never could do it really. Yeah, well, besides, I don't have anybody to impress with stuff like this, so it's kind of, what's the point? I don't find it entertaining, I guess. I'm thinking more along the lines of like, how do I quit this thing? But then on the other hand, my only two questionable habits is vaping and coffee. Even though I don't see coffee as a bad habit, because nowadays I cut down to just 1 cup of coffee without sugar when I wake up, and that's it. So at this point, it's not even a bad habit. If I was drinking coffee with, I don't know, extra caffeine, or I was having coffee, from plastic glasses, or if I was drinking sweet coffee, you could make the case, you could say, well, that's a bad habit. But nowadays, with 1 cup of coffee, 0 sugar out of a normal cup that is not plastic, I think it's not a bad habit. Social media is the biggest addiction. Yeah, that's true. Social media is the biggest addiction, and it's actually a lot more dangerous than people realize. Devin Mishra says that's normal chill. Social media. I just seen a reel, guys, before I went on here. I've seen a reel. There was a dude who was talking about how does it happen that good people become okay with the slaughter of children. And he talked about a study that came out recently about exactly the mechanics of how does it happen. How is it so that, a normal person like you, anybody, any normal person, goes from not being able to, to watch anything disturbing, to being fine with tens of children, was over 100 children that were killed in Iran or elsewhere. How does this happen? It happens because, through social media and TV programming. TV programming is kind of irrelevant, I think, for me, because I don't own a TV and I'm not the TV watching generation, really. It's more about social media. But when you scroll all the time through disturbing things, your threshold, your perception starts to change. And then over time, you don't feel anything. You just keep scrolling, And that's extremely dangerous because it literally drains your humanity. And then at some point, when there is yet another newsreel, there is yet another clip of, parents mourning their dead children, you don't have that emotional response anymore. And that's how the powers that be, they manufacture this silent consent. It's this doom scrolling is extremely dangerous in a lot of ways, and people don't realize this. I think a lot of people don't realize it, that what they think of is a fun activity is not fun at all. It kills them. It sanitizes their humanity. It wipes out their ability to grieve, to feel deeply, to be disturbed by something that you really have to be disturbed by. You know what I mean? To feel joy also, because if you're not able to feel grief, how are you able to feel joy? You're not. And then people get stuck in this, they kind of, their perception and their mind and their feelings, their nervous system gets stuck in this clouded maze, kind of a haze, a fog, where you can't really feel anything, and you're kind of bored, and you're not really sad, but you're not really happy, and everything is kind of gray. You know what I mean? Everything becomes gray. And you desperately try to find that dopamine kick. You desperately try to go for something, to get a kick out of something, out of some activity, be that a new show on Hulu or Netflix, be that a new video on YouTube, be that a new activity, be that something. But at some point, nothing really gets through to you. That is the danger. You see what I mean? And this is how I think this pushes people closer to real addictions, like, abusing substances, abusing alcohol, etc., etc., etc. It sets the stage for the nervous system to seek an extreme pleasure. And then on the other end of things, the way the consumerist society is built, it is built on overstimulation. It constantly propagandizes a certain way of life. It forces you, there's a lot of these, shiny things, and these shiny things are all over the place until you really don't feel anything about these shiny things. But still, you're pushed to spend money on something. It's that big shining car, that modern, really cool thing, that little gadget, that new, really ultra modern gadget that you absolutely need to have. It's relentless advertisement, it's relentless marketing. But I want to point out to how social media consumption weaves into this bigger picture. It takes away our senses, it grays out our lives, it grays out our humanity, and it makes us extremely susceptible to the system, to the matrix. That's what I wanted to say. Yes, it turns into derealization. Exactly. I Ran Children by Ayatollah. Devan Mishra. Okay, let me just catch up with the chat. Be vegan for the animals. Quit the bloodlust. Be vegan for peace on earth. Free Soul, I will disagree with you. I think it doesn't cut it. I'm not going to tell you how to live. I'm not going to tell you, definitely, absolutely not going to tell you what to eat. But that's not really the problem. It's like with the Epstein coalition that right now started a war in Iran. Well, they kind of continued what they were at for the longest time, really. I mean, it's a bloodlusty, bloodthirsty coalition of people who were in power for the longest time. It's not only about the United States, it's about the collective West. It's about the elites who thrive on other people's suffering. One of the problems that I see right now is that people don't seem to realize, a lot of people don't seem to realize, the Epstein files came out, right? And people discuss this, people are disturbed by this, rightfully so. But what kind of amazes me is that a lot of people don't seem to see the bigger picture, and they don't seem to realize the systemic nature of this abuse. it's not just up there behind the closed doors, behind the curtains, and all this, those unfortunate victims. It is happening to a lot more people on a much bigger scale. And the Epstein files is just part of this equation. These are just the honey traps. This is how the people who run Western countries, this is how they're compelled to do what they're doing. There's a much bigger picture, and it's a lot more disturbing. Veganism is, it's not going to change anything. I mean, maybe it's going to change something. Yes, I absolutely believe, Mother Nature and all of this. I talked about this before, that basically the only deity that I recognize as a real deity, maybe, is our planet and our living planet. But that alone is not going to cut it. We're living in such an extremely toxic society, and we're living within a matrix. So long as you have this going on, nothing is going to change, really. It's going to just keep going, and it's been going for centuries at this point. The ball of the vampires, let's put it this way, the ball of the vampires, the oppressive, the suffocating system that exploits the majority of people, by the way, without people even realizing that they're being exploited. A lot of people willfully embrace this system, thinking that they're standing for the right things, or that they're, living in a just world. They're not. This, Catherine, how are you? Chinkabers, thank you for showing up. I actually checked out your channel yesterday. And I want to wish you well, and I want to wish you good luck in your artistic endeavors. Devan Mishra says, Iran, children by Ayatollah and IRGC. Devan Mishra, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the Epstein Coalition, spearheaded by the United States and Israel, who started a war in Iran. It's not the first time that the United States and Israel are meddling in the affairs of other countries or trying to overthrow a government or a ruler, or in whatever other way, get into the affairs of a sovereign nation. It's not the first time. If you don't know this, the United States has been in the business of doing this since the end of World War II. Look it up. It's very interesting statistics on how many regime changes the United States has been involved in. If you think it's okay, well, I don't know what to say. I don't think it's okay. Freya Soul says it happens because humans do it to animals. Freya Soul, I will agree with you, but I will also disagree. I think humans are doing this to other humans, and quite often they don't even realize that they're doing this to other humans. They do it via ignorance. They do it via their unwillingness to realize the scope of the systemic abuse, and they just turn a blind eye to it. They normalize it. You see what I mean? That is, by far, I think it's a lot more dangerous. And then everything else is just, that's everything else is downstream from this. Do you keep contact with family in Moscow? What your siblings are doing? Yeah, of course I keep contact with my friends and family. My brother is working on an album right now, just like I am. All of my siblings are musicians. I'm not in touch with two of my other brothers, but I'm in touch with one of my brothers and in touch with my niece as well. So they're doing pretty well. Oh my God, yes, says Olivia. Rising to Shine says it turns into derealization. Yes. Chinkaverse Art says, is it the room where you do paintings? Yes, this is actually an old garage, which I'm using as a studio. And this is where I paint. Chinkaverse says, I really like your paintings and your cats. Thank you. Thank you. You become emotionless. Yes. Depression, restlessness, gloom, anxiety, and loss of yourself. Yes, precisely. So it's dangerous, this just mindless scrolling through social media, and people should really stop doing this. Hello, Apollyon. Apollyon sent some, okay, he sent some emojis. Thanks for showing up. Oh my God, Rachel. Okay. You will have to leave my channel. You're looking beautiful. Thank you, Chinka. Hello, Senorita, says Rita Even. Hello to you. Nice to see you on my live stream today. King God says, good news, beautiful moments. Okay. Okay. Gosh, it was a little exhausting to go through that rant. But I had to say what I had to say. I had to say what I had to say. And I think it's very important. Frankly, I don't know what to think about half of this country, because it seems that half of this country, I mean the Trump supporters, who are still standing with Trump, it completely just dazzles me. How can you how can you support this man? I don't know. Not to mention, who is the real president of the United States? Is it Bibi Netanyahu? Maybe. It looks like it is. Actually, it's a lot worse than this. The reason why I'm talking about this is because yesterday I had this short that dropped on my channel, and people came there into the comment section. They are talking about, like, well, the First Amendment is so important, and then the Second Amendment is so important, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. I don't think people got the point of what I was saying. The short was from one of the previous live streams where I was trying to make the point to kind of hint at that I don't think that the Second Amendment or the First Amendment mean anything at all in this country anymore. So long as you don't criticize the system, so long as you're within the confines of the political discourse, you're fine. If you step out of line, you're in big trouble. The Second Amendment doesn't mean much, I think, in the United States, because does that really matter? Does it really throw off the collar of oppression, the yoke of oppression off of your shoulders? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I think it's an illusion. It used to mean something way back, maybe. But at this point today, what does it really mean? Does it mean anything? I don't think it does. The people are not going to rebel. The people are not going to even question. And I can say this confidently because half the country supports the mindless war that is unfolding right now in the Middle East. And the majority of half of the country is not even asking questions. Half of the country is just going with this. And they think it's all for the good reasons. Because I don't want to go into religion. I don't want to go into religion. But let's just say that there is a lot of people who have this cult mentality, who have this imaginary friend. And in the name of this imaginary friend, they somehow are able to justify the killing of civilians across the world. And they're being told that this is for the betterment of America. And they are okay with this. That is pretty crazy to me. They don't even question. It doesn't bother them that it is murder. It doesn't bother them that the entities who do this use them as their slaves, as their backers. It doesn't bother them at all. It's harrowing and it's pretty scary, I think, to realize that there's a lot of people who, they don't even ask questions. It doesn't cross their mind that, there might be something wrong going on. And a lot of people, they just revert to this thing like, well, we don't know what's going on. The world is so chaotic. There is no explanation to why all of this is going on. Oh, there is an explanation. There is an explanation. But in order to really understand these things, one has to start thinking. One has to detach from the matrix, start looking at facts, not at narratives that are being spun by mainstream media, not at comfortable half truths. No, at the real truth. And the real truth is extremely disturbing. Because when you start to reveal those, the nooks and crannies from which this system is, upon which this system is built, you start to realize that all of us are plugged into a horribly oppressive leviathan, which thrives on our suffering. It's not a benevolent system at all. Whatever benevolent aspects of it we see, whatever is advertised to us as the good, the good stuff about this system is not that good. It comes at a price. Someone somewhere suffers for it, Gosh, I just had to get it out of my head. Do you plan live events soon, like Art Market? I don't really. I really don't have plans as far as a Art Market. I was on a live event a year ago in May. Yeah, I think it was in May, in Lexington. But it was kind of a large market about a lot of things. There was a lot of vendors, and it wasn't just an art market. I don't really know if it's worth it, because logistically, I have a lot of paintings, and I don't have a truck. I mean, I don't even drive. My husband drives, so it means it's his car. And then there are only so many paintings that you can pack into one car. And then if it's an art market, then you have to pay for the booth. You have to pay up front. So there are expenses. And then, I'm asking myself, am I going to make anything off of that event or no? Because if it's just to go somewhere and to spend money on just renting a booth and not selling anything, it's not worth it. And then, it kind of depends where. Where is it going to be? Is it Lexington? Is it Mount Sterling? I don't know. But one thing I think I learned from last year is that trying to sell oil paintings at very generic marketplace, where they have food and they have, like crafts, and they have like appliances and furniture and, clothing and all sorts of things. It's probably not the best place to do so, because people come there they don't come there for art. It's not an art only market. They come there for, just to spend some time, to maybe buy a few trinkets, to go see the horses, to eat some burgers, to eat some, cotton candy, whatever. That's what people mostly come there for. And so last year in May, I took almost all of my paintings to that marketplace. And I kind of regretted this, because it was a lot of work and 3 days. a lot of logistics, and hanging all of these paintings, and it's just a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of paintings. So I don't think it was entirely worth it. It was a good experience. I was glad to meet a lot of people, and all that. But I don't know. This year, I'm just not certain. I'm just not sure. Do I want to necessarily, take part in any art event or no? And if I do, then with what paintings exactly do I want to do this? Probably not with all of my paintings, probably not with 100 paintings, probably with less. I don't know. It is possible to win. It is possible to win something. What do you mean? Marcin Antos. But. What is the time there? I'm from India. It is 4:20 a.m. Wow. I think it is, let me see. It is 5:57 right now, 5:57 p.m. Some people are saying Trump is cannibal. Is it true? Yes, I think it very well might be true. And not only Trump. Don't answer. It is controversial, maybe. I shouldn't ask these questions. There is a lot of disturbing things in these Epstein files. And frankly, I was looking into this a couple of years ago. And I was traumatized by what I've seen. Before it became mainstream, before it all came out to the public, before people started talking about it, 2 years ago, I had a very dark winter because I looked into things that I wish I have never seen this. This was so dark. It was difficult to sleep after this. But yeah, I don't think it's some sort of conspiracy theory. I think it's reality, and the reality is extremely disturbing. But it's not just one person. It's not just one person. There's a whole lot of people, a whole class of people who are engaged in very dark things. And this is the kind of world that we live in. Just saying. I stopped looking into this. I don't expose myself to such things anymore because I already know. I don't want to go there again. I've limited. I don't even scroll through Telegram channels nowadays as much. I mean, I know what's going on. I know about the war in Iran started by the United States, by the Epstein coalition. I know about that. I'm up to date on things that are going on in Ukraine. I know about this too. I'm in touch with my Russian friends, of course. But do I need to be in the loop on a daily basis? No, I don't need to. Because if I get carried away by these things, then I won't be able to create. I'm working on a book, on a serious book. It's a huge story. It takes a lot of my brain power. I'm painting. Here, I'm working on a new painting. I'm trying to finish my album. And it's not that I'm unable to, that I don't have the courage to witness something. I just don't want to clutter my brain. It's a little too much for me. I'm a hypersensitive person. And I mean, literally, I'm a hypersensitive person. And I have a very vivid imagination. I don't want to absorb too much because it will be detrimental to me. I never went to art school. I learned everything by myself, and I do acrylic paintings. I also wrote some stories, and I wish I could do oil painting just like you. Oil paints are expensive here. Really? Why are they expensive? Do you know that you can make your own oil paints, by the way? If you want to cut the expenses, all you need to make your own oil paint, you need a good palette. And by a good palette, I mean a piece of glass, tempered glass. You tape it to a board so that it's stable, and use glass as a palette. Just make sure that the board underneath is white. Paint a piece of wood white, and then tape with some really good tape. Tape the glass on top of it, and you will get yourself a good palette. Then you can buy dry pigment, just pure dry pigment. And the other thing you need is oil. So it can be linseed oil or walnut oil, or gosh, what's the other one? Any of those. You can get yourself some linseed oil and dry pigment, and you can mix your oil paint on your palette. You don't even need to store it. You can mix a little bit at a time, as much as you need while you're painting. I have some dry pigment right here. Let me actually show you. I have some dry pigment. Here. You see? It's powder, dry pigment. And so I just, I also have, tubes of oil paint over there, but I think I want to gradually switch over to just mixing paint on the palette out of pigment and oil. It just appears to be very convenient, because you just make some paint on the go, and all you need is a palette knife, basically. You just mix it with a palette knife, and you paint. At least for an underpainting, it works very well. Dry pigments, yes. And which oil? Linseed oil. You can use walnut oil. You don't have to necessarily use linseed oil, but you can, walnut oil is probably even better. I actually contemplate switching to walnut oil. Here, it's probably mirrored, right? Linseed oil, bottle. It's also called flax oil. So that's what you need. Preferably a glass palette or plastic palette. If you can't find glass, at least, make it out of plastic, whatever. Dry pigment and oil. You don't even need binder. You can mix it up yourself. And I think that this is going to be cheaper. Linseed oil and walnut oil, yes. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Give it a try. Give it a try. And actually, this is how artists in the past, they used to make their own paint. Well, way back in the old days, they ground their own pigment. Usually they had an apprentice who would grind the pigments for them, and then they would mix it with oil, and then they would paint. Now, oil paint in tubes is a fairly modern invention. In the old days, artists used to mix it all themselves. Gosh, I've been going on for like an hour already, and gosh, I talked about some heavy stuff today. It's not like I wanted to talk about it, it's just, I just went there, I guess. I'm a history student too. What is your educational background? Music Academy. Um, yeah, Academy of Music back in Moscow. I also studied, I don't know what's the correct term in English, книговедение in Russian. This is basically bookmaking. So that, but I mean, this is, I actually have a degree in vocals, and music theory and this kind of stuff. But as far as what did I study myself, I studied, a whole bunch of things, including history, and I look into biology as well, and psychiatry, and biochemistry interests me a lot. Well, and of course, it goes without saying that, arts, everything that has to do with, the history of arts, history of music, and various, classical composers and all this. I have classical education, and history of arts as far as painters and sculptors and this sort of thing too. Dick Shanswami says, has Russia invaded Ukraine? Dick Shanswami, I think you're asking a stupid question, and I don't know why are you asking this question. The special military operation has been going on for 4 years now, and to ask a question like this today is kind of ridiculous. You either don't want to know the truth, or you might be just not knowledgeable. I don't exclude that. Or you're just trying to bait for something, and I don't like to be baited. Oh, music, English, history, biology, psychology, biochemistry, yes. Who's your favorite artist? As far as painters, well, I definitely like Singer Sargent, but I wouldn't say that he's like my very, very favorite painter. It's hard to say who's my favorite painter. There is a Russian painter, a modern Russian painter, Chirun is his last name. Ilya is his first name. Chirun is his last name. I love his painting a lot. Really, it's very impressionistic. It's very interesting. It's very colorful, and it's very the texture and just the way he treats oil paint is so good. I love it. But also, I like Alexander Deneka. This is a Soviet painter, Russian painter, Alexander Deneka. I like a lot of Russian painters, frankly. Ilya Repin, for example. Korovin, I like him a lot. I like, Monet, of course, but not everything, really. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't say that I have one favorite painter. It's more that I like something in the works of different painters or different artists. It might be sculptors, it might be transdisciplinary artists, it might be painters, it might be illustrators. I like the watercolors of Constable, for example. I appreciate Michelangelo a lot, even though I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of like the classical art, the Renaissance age art. I can appreciate, I have tremendous appreciation for it, but to say that I'm a huge fan, I would rather say that I'm leaning more into Impressionism. Impressionism and modern post-impressionism is a lot closer to me, frankly. As far as musical artists, there is a lot, a wide range of musical artists that I like, and again, I like certain things about them, and it's not limited to one genre or to one single artist. Dikshan Swami asks, so what's happening? Dikshan Swami, if you really want to know what's happening, I want you to go and find someone called Jeffrey Sachs. Jeffrey Sachs, I think, explains it best. Jeffrey Sachs explains how the expansion, the eastward expansion of NATO, how that led to the current events. And he explains the context, the broader context of the current geopolitical conflict that we find ourselves in. It's not only about Ukraine. It's about the bigger architecture and the bigger relationship between the Western world and the rest of the world, the global South, vs. the collective West. There is a lot more to it. It's not just about Ukraine. It's not just about Russia. It's also about Iran vs. Israel. It's also about South America vs. North America, American interests, the American imperial interests around the world. It has to do with this too, and ultimately it has to do with the current confrontation, ongoing global confrontation between the old unipolar world or the aspirations for a unipolar world, meaning the Western-centric model predicated on US hegemony, vs. the new emerging multipolar world. So that is the bigger confrontation that's going on today. That's what's going on. So start looking around. If you genuinely want to find out the truth about these events, about Ukraine, about Iran, about Libya, about Sudan, about Palestine, start looking. I highly recommend Jeffrey Sachs. I recommend Danny Haifeng. He's on YouTube. Look him up. Another good channel, gosh, Atlas. What's the name of the channel? I don't remember. Brian Berletic. Look up Brian Berletic, and you will get the answers. If you genuinely want to know the truth. If you don't want to know the truth, I can't help you. I like Michelangelo, who is from the Renaissance period, yes. And have you heard that song Way Down Ago by Kallio, Icelandic band? No, I haven't heard it. I'd have to find out. Artists like Da Vinci and Caravaggio mastered chiaroscuro, yeah, using the contrast between dark and light to create a sense of physical volume and psychological drama. Yes, chiaroscuro. That's what it's called. I still have 3 people watching. It means we love to watch. I appreciate this, and really thank you for showing up. And I'm glad to share whatever I know, like the stuff about oil paint. Just get good pigment and good oil, and that's basically all you need. I'm glad to help. I'm glad to help. This is the painting that I'm working on right now. Gosh. This is just an underpainting, but I don't want to make it too tight. I think I will just keep it loose like this. There is a ladybug on my painting. There's a girl and 3 lions. This is one of the paintings that I finished recently, and you see how loose it is too. You see all the brush strokes? Gosh. Yep. Large brush strokes. It's not even glazed and it's not even fully dry yet. So once it's ready, once it's dried, I will varnish it, and you will see it in my community tab. I'll post about it, and I'll probably set it for sale in my store. I don't speak Hindi, I'm sorry. I'm Russian and I don't know Hindi. And here's another painting that I finally finished with the donkey and Anamira, the girl and her donkey. It's pretty dark here, so guys, I'm just showing you things as they are right now. This was the little study for this painting. Kind of a simple study, but I changed the colors. The study was cooler, but I made this one warmer. Here is my handmade. I made myself this board to store the paint. You see? This is my oil paint. All of it. And I keep my palettes in boxes. You see? And there's my new glass palette, by the way, also in the box. I made this into a palette too. My brushes are a mess. Don't ask me why. I buy cheap brushes, very cheap brushes, and then I just work the living heck out of them. And when they are not usable anymore, I just throw them away. But I have to say, you know, I buy these very cheap brushes on Temu, and I don't really bother washing them too much, because then a brush becomes kind of a cross between a palette knife and a brush. And sometimes it gives me an interesting texture. For example, let me show you. Like this brush, for example. It's horrible. I mean, at this point, it's destroyed, and you can't really use it for what it was intended to be used, right? But now it has an interesting tip to it, and it allows for interesting texture stuff. So I keep these brushes. Or this. You can't paint small detail with this brush anymore, but you can use it for texture. This brush is very stiff at this point because it wasn't washed out properly. You see, I can barely bend it, but I can use it as almost like a palette knife for straight lines, or, you know, for better control. So, you know, I have some oil here. I just pour oil into these little caps, these little plastic caps, and then once it gets kind of dirty, I throw it away. One day, I will have a large studio with a lot of light, and I think it's going to be in Greece. I think it's going to be in Greece. I'll have a lot of light, a lot of daylight there, and I will paint it white so that it's all clean and uncluttered, because I really hate clutter. But I didn't choose to live here. I didn't choose to live in Kentucky. I didn't choose to live in this house. I didn't buy this house. I got married, and you know, this is where I happen to live. I don't like it here. But if I was to pick a place for me, I think it would be spacious. I think there would be a lot of light, and it would be mostly empty, because I love it when there is a lot of space. I love it when there is no clutter. I love it when things are clean, neat, and well organized. That's how I am. How long it takes to dry? It kind of depends because different colors dry at different speeds. The blue colors, they dry faster. The reds, the cadmium red, dries slower. They have different drying speeds, basically. The umber, burnt umber, and burnt sienna, they dry very quickly, I've noticed. But that's because they are ferric oxides, basically. They're different different combinations of iron oxide, ferric oxide, so they appear to dry a lot faster. But cadmium red dries a lot slower. Titanium white dries slower too. What else? Cadmium yellow dries slower as well, but Prussian blue dries faster. My brushes are cheaper than yours. By the way, I also don't wash brushes out of laziness. I wash them kind of while I'm painting, but I don't get too hung up on like I have to wash out the brush completely, with oil paint. I just solve this problem with buying cheap brushes and then just using them and going with that. Of course, I have the bristle brushes, the better brushes. I try to wash them actually so that I can use them over and over again. But the very cheap brushes, they do the job. Me too. I also want a painting studio for me, and it should be organized, and I will decorate my own studio. Yes. So you understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, Chinkaverse, thank you very much for being here with me, and thank you to everybody for showing up. I think I should be wrapping this up. I've been on here for an hour and a half. What's the time? It's almost 6:30. I frankly have to be going. But thank you very much to everybody for showing up. Thank you for hearing me out. And I will show up next Wednesday again. I will try to show up at 4 o'clock my time, but it appears that I keep showing up later every time. I'll try to wake up earlier. I'll try to show up earlier. But I will show up anyways next Wednesday. All right? So thank you very much for showing up, and have a wonderful time of the day or whatever, or time of the night. I wish you all well, and bye-bye. Ciao, ciao. Until next time. I don't know, but I really like watching you. I feel like you're an angel person. I'm not an angel person, but thank you for the compliment. I appreciate this. You have a good day.